What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and the third day of streaming. That's right. It's 3 days in a row. I've made it. I'm still alive. And so are you. Man, I hope everybody has started vacation because I'm feeling I'm feeling kind of guilty. Kind of guilty that I'm sitting here doing absolutely nothing. Well, not absolutely nothing. I am putting the show together and dealing with some of the worst weather we've ever seen. Well, okay, maybe not the worst weather I've ever seen, but it's just nasty. It's not cold and snowing. It's just kind of like 42 and raining. It's just not quite. It's just not. There's no Christmas weather going on, guys. I'm not digging it. First off, before I go any further, can you hear me? Okay. The mic's on. We should be good to go. Just want to make sure. Give me a thumbs up in the live chat. Would greatly appreciate it. Don't want to go 12 minutes again with absolutely no audio. Wouldn't be good. So what's going on, guys? It's gonna get spicy tonight. It's gonna get spicy. It's gonna get a little bit crazy. Oh wow, we have Dan Z saying it's 1 in St. Louis. No, it's not. It's not that. I think that front is actually making its way this way. Supposed to be. I mean, I'm hearing these horrible tales of negative 40-degree wind chills and all kind of crazy stuff. I'm just basically going to freeze in place and die. That's what I'm being told. It's not here yet. That remains to be seen. Hopefully I don't die. Hopefully you don't die. Hopefully we can make it through this live stream without dying, because it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get crazy. It's going to be, brother against brother. It's going to be the civil war within the home arcade community, because we're asking some tough questions tonight. It's real versus three-quarter scale. Are they all this? Are they all real? Is one real? Is one not? Is one a toy? Is one not? Do only real men, and I've had this comment in some of my videos, only real men have real arcades. Only real men have a CRT. That's kind of a weird statement to make, just to be perfectly honest with you. But okay, fine. We're going to go with that. We're going to try to tackle some of these questions tonight. We're going to delve into some of the misconceptions. We're going to talk about the facts, the reality of the situations. And then, we're going to actually give a ton of opinions. I'm going to have you guys answer just a bunch of questions, letting everybody know what you think. Opinions are going to fly, but I think this is probably where we're going to stay in for the most part, is the opinion area. But I think I'm going to make my case. I'm going to make my case that maybe things aren't quite as clear-cut as we think. So before we get into that, there is a poll question up every live stream. I have a poll. Jump over into the chat, look up top, and I'm going to say it's a simple question. And I usually say it's a simple question, but maybe it's not a simple question tonight. The question is this: do you consider three-quarter scale cabinets, usually arcade one-ups, but I'll throw iArcade in there also. It's a little bit different because you can download games to it and all, more of a console. But do you consider three-quarter scale cabinets as real arcade machines? We're going to talk about what's real, what's not, that category. Does it even exist? Is it even valid? Do we need to rename stuff? We're going to talk about that tonight. But do you consider it to be real? I mean, I know you can touch it, but what does that all mean? So anyway, 37 votes so far. Jump in there. Everybody chime in. I want your voices to be heard. I want everybody to comment. Get on one side of this issue, and then let's just talk about it. We're going to talk about it as rational human beings. As rational as I can be. I'm a full-grown man sitting here with a Santa Claus hat on. If you don't take me 100% seriously, I kind of understand where you're coming from. Tonight, there is no mix in my drink. We're going pure Jefferson's tonight. Still got some in the bottle. We've got the glass topped off. I need something a little sturdy tonight. All right? Keep me chiseled. Keep me focused. We got a lot to talk about. Real versus three-quarter. Wow. Think about this. I'm going to say hi to the chat for a minute, but I want you to think about this when we're talking about an arcade machine and what it really is and what it really was and what it is now and what these things behind me actually are. What are they doing? What are they representing? Now, before we get into all that, my complaining about the weather, talking about what I'm drinking, talking about the poll, I want to say hi to everybody who has stopped by on this third day of streaming. Today is Thursday. Yeah, when you're on vacation, you don't even know what day it is. Sorry. Bit of an ass. I apologize. A Tran Fanatic is back. Number one in the chat saying, I was busy building a frame yesterday at work, but I have a feeling I may not be today or tomorrow. Good. Well, we'll see, I guess. LOL, have a good stream. You meant to say great, not just good. You want us to have a great stream. Thanks for stopping by. And I know you're busy. You're hard at work. Most of you are probably still hard at work. I appreciate everybody taking a chance to stop by, jumping in the live chat and watching me on the replay. Really do appreciate it. Chris Lang, Lois 93 says, darn, work had me missed last night, but not tonight. Oh, no, no, not tonight. A little maple. Oh, here we go. Maple Crown and Coke. Nice. I think so. Nice. Very, very good indeed. Very good indeed. He's got his plan. JJ, what's up, buddy? To answer your question, yes. Well, sort of. When anyone comes over and sees mine, he's talking about his arcade one-up. He's not showing them other stuff. He's talking about his arcade one-ups. That's their first reaction. They are meant for home use, not commercial beating and banging, as we all know. I love it. I love it. I think everybody's passionate about this. I think everybody in this hobby is pretty passionate. No matter what side of the argument you fall on, I think everybody is pretty passionate about the way they feel. Dan Z says, hi, Fox. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Midlife Arcade. I'm a pro wrestler, so the word real is always a hot button issue. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about real and what the hell that really means. And please don't hurt me. Random One says, what up, Fox? Aren't full-size and 3/4 scale home arcades all just toys at the end of the day? Come on now. Don't jump to the end. That's another valid point. Absolutely valid point. Digging the countdown this week. I'm changing up the countdowns. They're all Christmas themed. We had Die Hard. We had Christmas Vacation yesterday, and then tonight was obviously Elf. So trying to keep it super festive, trying to keep everybody in good mood, even though tonight is going to be a serious, serious topic. Stoic face applied. Here we go. The bad guy, once again, choosing at this point to be the bad guy. Mike Worley says, they're real to me. Crying wrestling fan, anyone? No. Well, it's fine. It's fine. They're real in your heart. We're talking about, are they real in reality? Dan Z says, that's right. I read that comment. Still shocking. 1 degree. Not good. Not good at all. -12 degrees where I'm at. I'm getting some thumbs up. I'm assuming that's when you heard me ask, hey, is this thing on? Really want to make sure I'm on tonight, guys. JJ again says, your son is stuck in Chicago on a band trip from Texas. His flight was canceled, and now they're going to take a charter bus and drive home. Does that remind anybody of anything? JJ, have you thought, do you know what that is? Do you know what that is? That connection I'm making. That's Home Alone. Remember when the mom was trying to get home because Kevin was home alone? It's the name of the movie. It's a fairly big movie. People have seen it. And so she has to she jumps in the U-Haul truck with a polka band, and John Candy is the leader of the polka band, but they got to jump in the truck she was going to Chicago. So I don't know where they were. I think they might've been in New York, who knows, Pittsburgh, something. They were driving to Chicago. So I really hope they get home safe. Just, tell that driver, hands 10 and 2, get those kids home safe. I know it kind of sucks, but hopefully he'll be home soon, and then he'll be much warmer in Texas. That'll be awesome. She-Line Gaming, what's going on, girl? Good to see you in the chat. 12 minutes of no audio happens to the best of us. I count myself lucky. I'm amongst friends. Eric Galagos. Merry Christmas, Santa Fox. That's right. Have you been good this year? I hope so. Shogeko says, hey, Fox! ! How you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for showing up, because his name is Shogek. Sorry, moving on. Chris Alpha Tango. I like that. My dad told me a long time ago, if you can feel it, it's real. LOL. We're getting deep here. I love it. We're getting deep already. This is awesome. Christmas Hulk. Hey, Hulk will opine. Awesome. I want to pick up the comic book about Christmas Hulk. I think that could be really interesting. Curtis says, do I consider them real? No. They're facsimiles of real cabinets for home consumer use. And that's okay. Had my fill of 300-pound PCB troubleshooting, cap replacing real arcades. Arcade One Up is a nice substitute. Okay, so taking the negative approach, but not being negative about that approach. Look at that. Sanity prevails. I love it. Prince Vinny 007 says, hey, Fox, how you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Marty McFly, back in time, or back from time, or maybe we're actually ahead of the timeline of the Back to the Future movies. Think about how old that makes us. 2015 is our distant past. It used to be our distant future. Do I consider 3/4 scale cabinets a real arcade machine? ? All caps. Hell no. That's an insult to the original machine. Now this is some of that passion flaring up, okay? All right, like something that needs to have ointment applied. No, I get it. I understand your sentiment, and that makes perfect sense. We're going to get into all of that because listen, the passion is good. Keep it flowing, people. Keep it flowing. Retro Past. Real arcades are headaches to maintain. Arcade 1-Up are headaches in quality. See, they both have their headaches, don't they? Both have all of there's caveats to each one, right? Tim's Basement Arcade says, enjoying a nice cold beer. Enjoy. Sip. And well, yeah, you can, sip beer. Chug the beer. Do whatever with the beer that you will. And watch the insanity unfold. OGCade? Ouijacade Gaming. I apologize. I know I've messed it up. Is that Ouijacade? No, that's not Ouijacade. Best game in the Ouijacade. Thanks to She Lion Gaming for introducing me to the most realistic game in the world. Love you, doll. Okay, there you go. Compliments all around. She Lion is definitely going to be getting some attention, as she always does. Deservedly so. BA says 35 degrees in Orlando. Ooh, it must be tough. That's actually kind of weird. I need to check that. Are you actually warmer or colder? Are you colder in Orlando than I am here right now? Quick verification. And dude, yes, it's actually 44 degrees right now and raining in Cincinnati area. We're in a weird spot. The valley is just kind of crappy, but they say that the freezing white death is upon us. CGM says, hello, Fox. Hello. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Galaga Guy 88. What's up, man? Hello, Fox. Can't stay on long, but wanted to stop by and say hello. Thank you so much for stopping by and saying hello, man. I appreciate it. Smash that like button. Carl, hey, 19K and Chad. Good to see you, buddy. Roll down. Shannon's on says, I'll take real arcades or Arcade 1-Up. I just want my favorite games so I can play. Aha. I like it. I like where that is. I really like where I'm kind of landing. Definitely, I'm in that same space. I'm fine. I got a foot in all these camps. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm stepping back and I'm looking at this in many different ways. We're going to talk a little bit more about it as we go on. Darth Dorkimus Prime, in an age where real arcade cabinets are super expensive and difficult to find, I consider them real enough, especially when tinkering with the shortcomings of the 3/4 scale cabs to make them more authentic. That's the reality in which we live in, isn't it? DDP, thank you for stopping by. Do appreciate you. Let me scroll down. JT Brunick says, got to negative 51 here today, southeast South Dakota. I don't even know what you do. I don't even know what you do at that point. I mean, I guess you got like 10-inch walls just slam full of insulation with a crazy R value. I mean, are you living in an igloo? I mean, that's insane. That's crazy. You might want to need like a shelter, like a bomb shelter, like underground something. That's crazy. Negative 51. You're a bigger man than me to take care to live in that kind of climate. That's crazy. Rights Retrocade. What's going on? We got a Canadian in the house. Calgary, Alberta, got to negative 36 Celsius last night. No clue what that is in Fahrenheit. Hey Siri, convert negative 36 Celsius to Fahrenheit. That is negative 32.8. It's pretty damn cold. I don't know that anybody's going to top negative 51, and I don't think anybody should be trying to top negative 51. That's nuts. That's crazy. It's cold everywhere. Hopefully you're getting a little snow, a little white fluffy stuff, kind of coming down nice and easy, not blasting in sideways, locking you out, in your home and you can't go anywhere. I don't want that kind of Christmas for anybody. But I do want you, it's nice to have a white Christmas, like about, like 25 outside, maybe 20 degrees, get out there and it's really cold and it's like powder and you can play in it. That's okay. I don't mind that at all. That's pretty cool. So we talked about the chat. We've said hi to everybody I talked to the chat. I actually talked to you. We talked about the poll that is in the chat. Make sure you jump up there and check it out. How many votes do we have so far? 70. Come on. I know we can do better than that. Jump up there. This is the hot button issue. Are they real? Are they real? Not in your heart, but are they real in reality? We talked about that. We talked about what I'm drinking. Let's go ahead and get cranking. And I'm going to be going to the chat a lot tonight, asking what your opinion is, because I think I really need to get your opinion on some of this stuff. So let's take a look at, and we're going to focus on Arcade 1-Up because they got the most stuff out there. They have a lot of stuff. You've seen this slide before. talking about the different form factors, the different ways that you can play arcade games that are basically being emulated. And there's a bunch of different form factors out there. Are we going to sit here and try to say that the Couchcade is a real arcade? No, you're not going to find me making that argument. I'm not going to talk about the Projectorcade, even the Countercades, which are pretty cool. They're probably my second favorite, form factor. Really, I'm a 3/4 scale guy. I do like the XL, but I think if I could only have two, I'm probably going to especially with the game selection being so limited on the XL line, I'm a 3/4 scale guy and then some Countercades. I think those are probably the best two, at least, where I'm standing. It's everybody, your mileage may vary because I got the cocktail variants and all that. But I'm talking about realistically those 3/4 scale cabs. And this argument could be applied to really any of this form factor, with the exception of maybe the Collectorcades, which are running those are like NES, those are like 8-bit and 16-bit ROMs. Those aren't even the actual arcade ROMs. So they don't even, that's not going to count. The same thing could probably be said for those TV boxes, the HDMI boxes. You can probably get those out of the way too. But for the most part, these other ones are running those same ROMs that all the cabinets, all these Arcade One Up products are running. So the same ROMs. It is emulation. This is not a board. This is not a reproduction board, chip for chip that's going into these, boxes, these cabinets. So it's not going to be that authentic. It's just not going to be. But out of all these form factors, we're really going to be focused on the 3/4 scale. And, I think 3/4 XL, those pretty much are interchangeable at this point as far as this conversation is going to go. Now we talk about real. We talk about what's real, a real arcade. You don't have a real arcade. I've got those comments, and listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. Doesn't bother me. If you come in my comment section, if you're looking at my videos and you're making fun of my basement arcade because I'm calling it an arcade, and you say I don't have real machines, that's fine. That's your opinion. It doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me at all. I know that's a legitimate complaint out there. That's a legitimate criticism out there, and that's fine. I'm just showing you what I'm putting together, and you call it what you want to call it. But you may be getting some of those same comments too. Maybe not on your YouTube channel, but you might be getting them on your Facebook posts. You might be if you ever post anything on social media, but also like people coming over, or maybe just people that know what you're doing. Those aren't real. Aren't those cheap? What are you doing? That's not real. Let's talk about that tonight. So arcade machines. When you take apart the cabinet, and the cabinet, if you're talking about a commercial machine versus a residential machine, which is some of the terminology that I'm going to start using. You got commercial and you got residential. You have things that are built to take a beating, like somebody said in the chat. It's an industrial application, commercial application. When we talk about some of the components tonight, you're going to see the components themselves are more of an industrial application. I'm in refrigeration, and you have industrial refrigeration, where the valve, just one valve, right, is this big and it's solid and it's cast, metal, and it's really heavy, and it's got multiple operating stems and all this stuff, right? That's a big commercial industrial refrigeration system, valve in that system. And then over here on the home, the residential stuff, you have like this little small valve, and it's all brass, and it's got like one little adjustment stem on it. Maybe it's got a little solenoid on top, but it's physically smaller. It's not as thick and heavy and robust. It's just not going to be able to take some of the abuse that the higher pressure systems would have in like the industrial side. So industrial or commercial and residential is really going to be two of the big factors that are going to come into play. I think that's probably a better way to describe this. So you'll hear me saying those words interchangeable, but I'm also going to be talking about real, because that's what some people in the community say, that word, real. And that's fine. But you know what else is really real? Like real? A $5 super chat from Jay 111, $5. Thank you so much for the super chat. I own Arcade One Ups of Pong, Golden Axe, and the MK30th. Wrote off the company, but to be honest, the slot machine has me interested. I know what you're talking about. Those little leaks we talked about, right? LOL. I know I'm in the minority. No, I don't think you really are. I think there's some people, a lot of people, are really interested in some of those casual games. And at the end of the day, that's really what arcade machines, for the most part, were intended to be, a casual game that you would pump quarters in, play a quick game and move on, and somebody else could come in and dump their quarters in, rinse and repeat. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I really do appreciate it. And listen, you're the first one up, so you have to go to the pit.
Finish him. Fatality.
Ah, he died so young. Please come if you ever, if you can walk that off, that pitfall, maybe you can come back next week. Appreciate you stopping by, man. Okay, so let's look at some of the components that make up a big arcade, a commercial arcade. And you're going to see you up. We'll start kind of we'll go around the horn here. We'll start the upper left and work our way around. So we have a big power supply. This takes incoming power. So in the US, we use 120 volts AC, goes into this power supply, and then it takes that power and it'll drop it down to 12 volts and 5 volts or whatever is needed to run all the components that are inside that cabinet. This is going to vary from place to place. Your voltage, does vary, and you'll find that these power supplies will take a different. It has like a range. It's not exactly 120 volts. It's usually a range. I brought up on my candy cab that range is actually 90 to 130 volts. So anywhere within there, you're going to be fine. So if you have 110, if you have 125, if you've got 100 volts, it's going to take that no problem. And the point of that is it's a step down transformer, basically. It steps down to multiple voltages, 12 volts, 5 volts, whatever. And that way it can power all the devices inside the cabinet. Of course, you're going to have a control panel. I had to pick the 6-player X-Men, but you're going to have a control panel with controls in it, input devices. Sometimes it's sticks and buttons. Sometimes it's steering wheels. It's joysticks. It's a big like the joysticks for like Tron, flight sticks, that kind of stuff. Spinners, whatever you want, right? That's going to be one of your main components, one of the 5, right? Then you're obviously scrolling on down to the right side. That blue thing on the bottom right-hand corner is a CPS2 board. That's an A and B board. And that's going to be your game. What's going to be considered the game PCB. And that's going to be the main thing that's going to, obviously that's where the game comes from. Outputs the signal to the monitor that we're going to talk about in a second. And then it also takes inputs from that control panel. And then, of course, all the way to the left, bottom left, you have, in this case, a CRT monitor for those real arcades. And then the thing in the middle is, it's not to be overlooked. It's very, very important. That's the wiring harness that plugs everything together and makes it all run. In this case, I'm talking about a JAMA harness. That's the JAMA standard. Not all arcades have that. Other arcades have different standards. But usually it's the most accepted. And then if your arcade PCB doesn't accept the JAMA standard, there are usually a bunch of boards out there that will act as sort of a junction point that you will plug into your board. And then it will convert whatever's on your board to a JAMA edge that you can plug into with this wiring harness. But most people, when they're talking about the big commercial machines, this is what they're thinking about. And let me know in the comment section, what do you think about this? Do you disagree? Is there some component that I'm missing? I trust everyone is golden. Absolutely, King Midas. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Your Majesty. Biggie D's in the house. Hey, Beach Native 78. So what do you think, guys? Am I missing something here? I think these are the 5 components that make up an industrial arcade machine. Obviously, the cabinet itself is just the cabinet. It's just the housing that all this stuff goes in. Big wooden American cabinets. Some of those sleek fiberglass Japanese candy cabs. I'm missing audio. Okay, well, that's a good point. I'm missing the audio. Speakers. Definitely, I should have put that. Actually, you're exactly right. That is another device that we're not thinking about. I'm not thinking about because it is a separate audio signal. That's not a TV you're looking at. That's just a monitor. Your speakers are also going to be in there. So I guess it's going to be 6 main components, right? Speakers are definitely a part of it, Jay. Thank you for that correction. And, you're also talking about variations within each one of these components. Obviously, we talked about the control panel, the variations there. The game boards themselves, variations there. And actually going back to your controls, some of those controls have additional PCBs. Some of I'm thinking about like Afterburner has a like a vibration motor, right? And it's there and it'll move your joystick or your flight stick up and down. There's all kind of extra inputs and things that maybe require different motors. Rumble motors, bumper motors. Any kind of vibration, any kind of feedback device will be something a little bit extra. And that may even take its own power going back to the power supply. So your power supply has to be, has to accommodate everything within that cabinet, everything that cabinet's going to need. But your speakers are definitely something. It could just be those cheap little 4-inch speakers that, are very standard on every cabinet. And that's it. Those 8 ohm speakers, you know what I mean? The little dense, chintzy ones, and that's it. There could be that, or it could be something like Big Blue that has a separate amp. So once again, you have a separate PCB, a separate thing that pushes the audio signal to those speakers and giving you like the Q sound on some of those Capcom cabinets. Mote plays. What's going on, buddy? Thank you for stopping by. Happy holidays, 19K Fox in chat. Thank you so much, brother, for stopping by and spreading the happy holidays, the season's greetings. I appreciate it, man. But so 6, if we're going to talk about audio, that's definitely legit. So we're talking about 6 main components. And this is definitely what someone would consider being, boom, missing a power supply amp. Yeah, the power supply is upper left. The amp would be separate. That's what we're talking about. When we're talking about the audio, it may require some additional stuff like an amp. If you're talking about like a Q sound cabinet, a Q sound equipped cabinet from like Capcom, that's just one example. But you don't necessarily have to have an amp. Sometimes it just takes the signal right off the board, right off the PCB, and that's just kind of what you get. And speaking of what you get, sometimes you get people showing some love and graciously giving a $10 super chat like Danny Davis. $10. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas, Fox and everyone. Thank you so much for swinging by. Merry Christmas. Right back to you. $10 super chat. Nothing to sneeze at, but I got to give you something for your trouble. Let's just say that this woman right here is not somebody you want to mess with. Okay, so we've gone over some of these components here, and some of the different ways that it could be a little more complex, not just input devices, but input devices that require other stuff. But basically, for the most part, with the exception of I got to add the speakers, right? 6 main components. There you go. What else does this look like, though? What if we look at this over here? What if we look at this over here? What do we have here? Let's start at the upper left. We're talking about a power supply. That brick right there, if you see this on your arcade 1-ups, that brick is a transformer, a step-down transformer. It'll take your incoming voltage that is a range, right? 120 volts American power will fall into that range, but it's also made for Japanese markets, 100 volts, it'll have a different cord end, but there's your step-down transformer that drops the whole system down to 12 volts. And that's basically what the entire system runs on. Now, once it gets to the PCB, it steps it down further. It'll step it down to 5 volts if you've got any kind of a USB connection. So, but it takes incoming, this is like the first step of that, that power distribution, dropping the whole system power down to 12 volts. So that's what comes into your PCB. And like I said, the PCB can drop it down to 5 volts from there, depending on what PCB you have. Anything that has a USB connection is going to have some kind of step down on the PCB that's dropping that down additionally to 5 volts. You've also got your control panel, not quite the 6-player that we saw on the last slide, but you have the control panel. And, RKO1 puts out a bunch of different stuff. You get your standard joysticks and buttons of varying qualities. We're going to talk about that tonight. But then you also have steering wheel games. You have Outrun. You have Ridge Racer that has the rumble steering. So that's like additional feature, which requires, once again, if you tear into your cabinet, or maybe you noticed this when you were putting it together, it requires separate power to run that rumble motor on the steering wheel. So there's more power distribution going on there. Just to kind of frame that up, right? The audio, for the most part, is all driven from those PCBs. So there's not, you're going to have speakers, which should be on this list, but for the majority, I think for every cabinet, with the exception of the Pro cabinet, we've seen the Pro has an additional amp on top, right? We saw those pictures, but every other arcade 1-up, as far as I'm aware, is just the audio signals just driven from the PCB. So there's no additional amps beyond whatever's on the PCB. So you've got that. Then you also got the PCB itself, which we're talking about, that does a lot of things. This is obviously where the game is housed. That's where the visuals come out. Also, it connects to the control panel, which brings us back to the PCB. So you have that connection, accepting those inputs from the player. Your audio signal, all that comes out very, very similar to what you see in the commercial grade arcade machines. And then one of the biggest differences, honestly, between the home, the residential, and the commercial is going to be, or if you want to use the terminology, the real cabinets is going to be the fact that we're not dealing with a CRT monitor. This is a 17-inch LCD panel, skinny, slim, low power usage, low, very, very, very user friendly, not really complicated at all. LCD panel. It is a massive upgrade. And then you also have your ribbon cable, which connects everything together. And sometimes it's just a ribbon cable, but that's usually limited to like third generation cabinets. That's when they started going beyond that, and there's more cabling. But it all comes back to the PCB. A lot of similar components. So some people may say, okay, well, they're the same, right? They're basically the same. This is just like a different iteration of the exact same thing. They're exactly the same. It's just like version 2. It's just an upgrade. It's just an evolution of the product, right? But now a lot of people don't see it that way. What do you think? So just based on what we've talked about so far, am I on the right track? Just what we've talked about so far, do they seem similar? What do you think? Dragon Gamers in the house. What's up, buddy? Real arcade games have suicide batteries on them. Having to deal with one. Ooh, fun. Not really. Yes, they do have. There's a lot of other stuff going on when you're talking about the PCBs, the games themselves. The Capcom CPS2 boards have the suicide battery. There's a lot of other different copyright protection stuff from back in the 80s and 90s, that ways that we're trying to get around piracy. Back then, it was a little bit different. You weren't just downloading stuff. You weren't just ripping stuff. You weren't converting a game disc to an ISO and then you put it on the internet and everybody had it. That wasn't necessarily the case. But yeah, they were trying to combat issues with piracy back then, and they were using these suicide batteries and stuff like that to just suicide the boards. Luckily, we can save some of these boards with like this. I keep going back to the CPS2. I probably have the most. I'm most familiar with that board system, that play system. They have the InfiniKey, which if you can find one, let me know. I'm having a hard time finding one. The InfiniKey will something you can solder to the board, and it will eliminate the need for that. But absolutely, that's another distinction, right? Definitely another distinction. The ribbon cable, it looks like socks. It kind of that first generation cable, that second gen, was that thick cable. Yeah, that was very much that's the old style. That is the old style for sure. Curtis says, it's not hard. It's not as hard as it used to be years back. Look up ETA Prime on YouTube for tutorials. Yeah, exactly. Oh, you're talking about something else. I apologize. Jumping into y'all's conversation. What's going on? You're on the right track. There we go. You're on the right track. There we go. And hashtag Fox Nation. Damn right. We're bringing it home. We're making that ours. That's what we're doing. Awesome. We got smiley faces, same enough. So far, right? So far, very, very similar. So you would be forgiven to think that these are basically the same. Not the same, but you know what I'm saying. They're very, very similar. Very similar indeed. But I think there's something missing. If you look up the definition of like an arcade machine, there's a distinction that's made on like Wikipedia. I think even Webster's Dictionary will define it just a little bit differently. And it's funny. It's the one thing that arcade one-ups have lacked. The first and second even the third generations lacked this completely 100%. And that is the coin mech. Now, not just a molded coin door, but an actual mechanism that accepted coins. There's a little whisker switch inside. There's a little limit switch inside that would register every time you dropped a coin in there. That went back to the PCB saying, boom, let's play a game. That equals one play. It's like hitting a button, right? So that was it. That's probably the biggest differentiating factor. Don't Christmas Hulk, don't say coin door. I have to say coin door. He said it. I said it. I'm sorry. I said it. Coin door. Exactly right. This is the thing that's different. If somebody's going to draw a distinction, they're going to have a hard time getting past our logic of, hey, these components are very similar, almost identical to these components as far as what's needed to make it all work. I mean, really, point for point, you're right there. This is always going to be an issue. Okay, but it's real if it has a coin door. Not a coin door sticker, not a molded coin door, but an actual coin door with a mechanism inside. Something that is going to accept a coin. Okay. What do you think about that? Is that a fair statement? Is that the line in the sand? Okay, well, that means, okay, that's just, okay, well, that's it. If it has a coin door, then it's real. And if it doesn't have a coin door, it's not real. Well, that's where that distinction that I'm drawing comes in. I think the real distinction is going to be, commercial versus residential. if you have it at home, and listen, when we were bringing these home back in the day, and I've had a couple cabs previously. I had a Street Fighter 2, and then I had a Ridge Racer, Ridge Racer 2 actually. I had real cabinets before. Had to sell them. You know, life changes. You get another kid on the way. You got to get rid of your stuff, and then you come back to it later on in life. But when you were getting these boards, the first thing you would do is you would figure out the dip switch combinations and set it to free play. So the coin doors were useless. I mean, you never really set them up to accept coins again. I mean, you just didn't. But coin operated, Andrew is on the right track. Coin operated was the distinction. That's how these machines were defined forever. But there was, up until about 3 years ago, there's never been this other category of an arcade machine layout very similar that doesn't need coins. Coin operated really defines, and I think it defines more of the business itself. Okay, if you opened up an arcade, you had machines in there. And to play those machines, you would have to pay to play the machines. It was a pay to play. It was like a business model, right? Still exists now, just takes a different form. It's not just quarters, and it's not just dollar bills you have to feed into the machine. Now you go into Dave & Buster's and you buy a bracelet, whatever you think, you pay them $20 or $50 or $1,000. It's so expensive last time I was there. And then you can, you just scan and go, right? And it's different. It's different. MG, what's going on, buddy? Listen, no. Actually, I started early. I usually stream at 9. But I'm coming on at 7:30 because I want to kind of be the lead in for B's coming on a little bit later, Kongs R Us, and then Michael B is also going to stream tonight. So you got just 3 shows. So don't worry, you're fine. You're actually right on time. Don't worry about it. Yeah, CBA. I gotta say, and I know I'm trying to blur the lines here, but the distinction has always for me been the coin op, the coin mech, and there's nothing. It's hard to beat that sound of taking that token. We're taking that quarter and dropping it in the machine and hearing the clunk and hearing either it hits an empty bucket or it hits a half full bucket. You hear all the other change inside, Yeah. So you're swiping cards. It's fine. But it's not the same. But in any event, so that's been the big deciding factor. That's the thing that's been different. I think that's, if you're going to draw a line to decide which one is real, in my opinion, which one is industrial versus commercial versus residential. This is going to be, the dividing line right here. Okay, that's the DMZ. That's the line that will separate North and South. That's it. But does it make your machine less real? I don't know that it does. Just because it doesn't have a coin mech, because it has a different purpose. Like I said, if you brought this machine home and you opened up your PCB for your game, and you set the dip switches to free play, answer me this. At that point, was that arcade machine now not real? Once you set the dip switches, once this is now a free play machine, did it become not real? Because basically it's like taking out the coin mech and throwing it away. It doesn't matter. The PCB isn't looking for that input anymore. It doesn't care. It doesn't care if you're putting in a quarter. It's just going to play the game. So if you did that, did it become not real now? Did it evaporate? Are you not a real man anymore because you don't have a real machine because you turned off the coin mech? You need to leave that on and keep a bucket of quarters there and constantly put it in. You're not a real man, right? No, it doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't. So what does that do? Does that take the coin mech out of the equation now? Is the coin mech not even a thing? Well, you can't deny the fact that it exists. You can't deny that was the reason why these things were made in the first place, was to make money. So you can't just take it, your proof is it's gone from existence. It's always going to be a factor. I think if anything, that's definitely going to be the thing that's going to divide, the two products. Okay. You had something that it's like it spent time. It's like a war vet. Okay. When you bring home a cabinet and it's beat up and the paint's chipped and the art's torn or it's faded and the joysticks, man, they got some slop to them and these buttons don't quite hit right. The springs wore out. It's done time. Okay. It's done time. It may be even institutionalized. You got to bring it back. You've got to rehabilitate it. Let it know it's going to be okay because it's home now. It's not going to be abused anymore. It's going to take some time. You're going to have to give that arcade cabinet some love, but eventually it will smile on you once again. That was weird, but we're going to go with it. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and have another drink while we're talking about this. But yeah, so listen, is that the deciding factor? I don't think so. I think a cabinet that has seen some time, I think an industrial cabinet, a commercial grade cabinet, There is a distinction there, but that doesn't invalidate the 3/4 scale cab you have at home. It doesn't make it less real. To the viewer's point, I've said this before on my channel. They're all toys. You can get mad all you want, but if you bring this arcade home, this full-size arcade, this commercial arcade, this real arcade, if you bring that home to your house and you're not charging people money to play it, it's just a toy. It's just a game. It's just a PlayStation. It's just an Xbox. That really is what it's become. It's a completely different form factor. It has a completely different fan base. It is a completely different experience. I'm going to acknowledge all that. But come on, it's not what it once was. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. overly critical person. Once again, it's just my two cents. But I think that there's no denying that there is a distinction between a cabinet that served in that role and is now, now it's now home and it's different. So it's doing a different thing, and that's fine. But yeah, there's a lot. Okay, so King Midas adds character. Absolutely. You're talking about something, and listen, sometimes it's really nice to have something that's got some age on it. Patina, like if you have a car, an old truck, something, and there's a little bit of rust, a little bit of wear, and the sun has been beaten down on this thing, and the clear coat's kind of faded. That can be cool. That can be a rat rod. But that look can be patina. You could have an arcade cabinet that's got some patina. It's got a little love shown to it, little hate, little beat, and little banging. It's got some miles on it. That can be cool, and you can leave that. You can restore it. But there's no denying that the cabinet has been through a lot, and it has served a purpose. It served in that role. It was real for a time, but now it's home. That doesn't mean it's less real. I think the same argument can be applied to the arcade one-ups that we have, that we care about, that we cherish so much, that we modify and customize, flip it around, change the artwork up, take that 17-inch monitor, upgrade to a BOE IPS type 17-inch. Maybe you cut out a bezel and swap in a 20-inch. I think that there's, what I'm saying? I think that it's the same thing can be applied there. But I think at the end of the day, there's no denying the fact that there's a difference between the two, but I don't think one invalidates the other. Let's talk about something that's in the news recently. And yes, moist wood. It happens. I know you don't agree, MG, but it happens. Just May says arcade one-up whack-a-mole. Not a bad idea. I like where your head's at. I would prefer that than some of this other crap. I would prefer a whack-a-mole arcade one-up over a couchcade or a projectorcade or a collectorcade or even the cocktailcades, and especially way more than the giant joystick. They really should have thought of a different name. It's a bad name. Jay Sauce says, does a 3/4 become real or does the full size become unreal? Okay. So look at it that way. Does one become, I think they're both real. I think they both serve a different purpose. One is obviously more beefy. One was more built. It's built for almost a different type of environment. Well, it was built for a different type of environment, but all the components are the same. Point to point, we've talked about that tonight. They're all pretty much the same. But you know what's not the same is some of the quality of the components. Now let's talk about this a little bit because this has kind of been in the news recently in our community because we had a arcade manufacturer dare to call something pro. Now, when you call something pro, that's a whole new level, right? We've had these 3/4 scale cabs out there. They've been called many things. They've been called legacies. They've harkened back to, they've been anniversary cabs celebrating the class of 81, all these other things, sort of homages to. We've even had the XL cabs that are just bigger. But now we had somebody say, hey, these are pro. They better be pro. They better really be pro. It's all real. Game on. That's right. That's right, Conga. Everything's real. Everything's real. The Babycade, unfortunately, in this reality, in this timeline, the Babycade is real. It exists. It exists for sure. But let's talk about that pro. OTG, I saw your video, bro. We're going to talk about it. You're going to talk about it. When you talk about the difference between the two, the residential and then the commercial, we're talking about not a distinction as far as number of components, not a distinction as far as the components that you need to make it work. We're talking about quality. The wood is thicker, 1/2 inch to 3/4. That control panel is made of freaking steel, or it's massive. We talked about the CRT versus the LCD. We're talking about a much beefier, big old power supply. The wiring harness has 1,000 wires. The controls are also upgraded. We've heard some stuff lately people talking about this Pro cabinet and the fact that, man, this joystick just doesn't seem quite right. And then we've had other people on the other side saying, why are you complaining? What's wrong? What's wrong? It don't matter. It doesn't matter. Well, the problem becomes when, we're sitting here talking about real and not real, 3/4 and, commercial and all this back and forth. But you're trying to jump over the line that's in the sand. You're trying to call yourself pro, which is fine. But you got to get it where it counts, right? So I've talked about on the stream. I got some pushback, and that's okay, about my assessment of the monitor. I think that in the wording of what's on the website, they're making a distinction. They're calling this an IPS monitor. It is an IPS monitor. I've been corrected by people that know more than me. It is an IPS monitor. But if you compare apples to apples, it's only as good as what we saw before on the 17-inch versions. So it's really just more of the same. Don't try to pretend like it's something special, And yes, how could I forget Christmas Hulk? Don't smash the tin sign that came with the cabinet. And I'm not trying to bash the company, but I'm just saying, if you call something pro, get ready for massive scrutiny, because you didn't just call it pro, you gave it $1,000 price tag. So let's talk about these joysticks. And the only criticism I have, because I don't have the cabinet, is that, hey, that sounded really, really clicky. Like, damn, that's some loud clicking going on. What is that? Yeah, Lisa, Miss Lisa, I apologize. It's not looking good. She says, oh no, have they still not got the joysticks right? Let's talk about it. So this is a guy that doesn't have the cabinet. So I can't say, but what I'm looking at, right? We got guys like OTG. If you want to swing by OTG's channel after this stream, maybe take a look. He's got a video talking about those sticks. He's got the 3/4 scale Killer Instinct, and he's got the Pro Killer Instinct, and he's not liking what he's got. But let's talk about the joystick. Now, this is going to be HAP IL versions of the joystick. We'll talk about more in just a second, but I thought it would be helpful to sort of illustrate the point, or maybe to have some reference as far as what we're talking about, all the different components that make up the joystick. There's an illustration up top, and obviously we know things like the handle and the stick and the dust cover, that kind of stuff, the mounting plate, you get that. But now we're getting into some of the guts of the machine, the guts of the actual joystick. You have the spring inside, which you want to get different poundage of spring to provide so much resistance. But now the bottom of the joystick is really what we're talking about here. You've got what's called the actuator, which actually makes contact with the micro switches, the 4 micro switches on the machine, on the bottom of the joystick. And there's a restrictor gate on some. This doesn't really have that. That's more of like the SANWA, which I'll show you in just a second. And then you've got the E-ring on the bottom. It's like a C-clip that clips onto the bottom of the shaft, because there's a relief cut into it that accepts that. But we're talking about the actuator. The actuator is the thing that makes contact with your switches. And if that thing is off for whatever reason, that's your input. Think about this. It's important to note that the switches, these little micro switches, are sending inputs back to the game board, back to the PCB, registering your punches, your kicks, your whatever, your ups, your downs, everything. Well, specifically here, your up and down, all your movements. It's sending that information back. So this needs to be crisp and clean and correct, especially if you're calling your cab a pro. Now, they've actually said that they are using HAP Suzo controls. It is right there on the box. So it's not up for discussion. There's nothing kind of out of, I'm not insinuating anything. It's right there on the damn box when you buy it. And this is what you're looking at when you're talking about something. Now, these are not pictures of that joystick. This is what I found online, some of the different types. So you're looking at, I don't know which one's competition or which one is whatever, but a couple examples down here of different ways that the actuator can be mounted onto the shaft and then, actuate those switches. So on the right, I think it's traditionally what they have there, a big square plastic actuator that as you move the joystick around, it makes contact with those 4 switches. Over on the left-hand side, I believe this is more of the competition. I think this is the better version, whatever the nomenclature is, whatever they're calling it. And that's more of a round actuator. I think it's actually metal here. And then you have these whisker switches, whiskers mounted on the switch, so that ball doesn't have to make contact with the red part of the switch, which is that's the part that is making and breaking the contact. It just has to make contact with that whisker part, right? The long skinny metal piece. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to have a super exact point. It can hit anywhere on there and it's going to make contact. Let's check this out. These 2 pictures are what I have at home on my machines. So the picture on the left is what I have in my Raiden cabinet. This is an IL. This is the $14 joystick that they had. I can't remember if this is competition or what, but you can see very similar, no whisker on this at all. But you can see that the actuator, the big square in the middle, has to be a certain size. It has to be a certain proximity, from the actual switch itself. It has to be a certain size so that when you move, it doesn't take you forever. It doesn't take a bunch of travel to hit the switch, right? So if the square is too big, if the square is oddly shaped, that could be a huge factor. So when we're talking about actuators on joysticks, it actually does make a big difference. So you have on the left is an IL stick, which I believe this is also HAP, I believe, sort of copied IL. Yeah, I may have this wrong, but for the most part, they're very similar. I don't know who came first, the chicken or the egg, but you see that right there. Over on the right-hand side, you see this is a Sanwa joystick. I've taken the restrictor gate off so you can see what's going on inside. This is a legit Sanwa, not a iArcade. I'm sorry, this is not an Arcade 1-Up clone joystick. That's an actual, Sanwa piece right there. You can see the actuator, I think, is metal, and it's pretty close to the red part of the switch, which is the point that has to actuate. So it's pretty damn close. So once again, when you're talking about real, when you're talking about 3/4 scale, the quality is the big issue. And with this pro version coming out, trying to blur the lines between commercial and residential, this is where you really got to make sure you got to step your game up if you're trying to move into the real world, if you're trying to move into the commercial side. It's a thing. Quality does matter. That's the main distinction when you're talking about all these different components. So one of the biggest things, and this is the song as old as time, not Beauty and the Beast, kids, but CRT versus LCD. When you're talking about an arcade, what makes a real arcade? Well, some people will tell you it's the CRT, stupid. Don't you know this? The CRT is what makes it real. That's a real arcade. It's a CRT. So if it doesn't have a CRT, it can't be a real arcade according to some, right? Come on, right? That has to be it. If you don't have a CRT, you don't have a real arcade. And these, what I have pictured here, are real arcades, beautiful big blue cabinet. And then over on the right-hand side, you're going to have the candy caps over there in Japan. I have one now. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it does have a CRT in it. But this is what you got to have, right? If you don't have a CRT, you don't have a real arcade machine. Well, is that always the case? If you go into an arcade now, what do you call these? They have a coin mech on there or a dollar bill, receiver. Because, it'd probably take you, this is probably a $2 a play game, maybe $1, depending on where you are. That's that's an LCD, kids. That's an HD TV mounted onto your arcade machine. Is that real? Is that a real arcade? Are these 2 machines looking at, are these real? Or are these fake? Are these not, they're not real. Are they real? Because if you're talking about quality, it's there. Heavy duty guns. This is I think if you wanted to purchase this, you're probably looking at like $8 grand, $9,000 to purchase this bad boy. You've got big heavy duty guns, heavy duty controls. The coin mech is there. This thing is massive. You're going to have all your components on the inside, probably rocking a PC inside where the, where your guns are sitting there. Is that real? Those are Gen Z. That's a fair point. Christmas Hulk. I can't deny that. That is a fair point. They are arcade machines. They're real, but that's Gen Z. All right. I can give you that. I can give you that. I'm a Gen Xer, so I got you. I know where your head's at. And I'm going to make that point in a minute, but just bear with me on this one. Answer this in the chat. Let me get a 1 in the chat. Is that a real? Are those real? Are those real arcade machines? Let me know. Are they real? It's just big. Everything's real. I feel like I'm in the Matrix. Is it real? What's real? Like bending the spoon. You have to remember there is no spoon. It's not a trick question. What do you think? Okay, ones in the chat. I see some ones in the chat. Ones in the chat. I have a 3-quarter scale alien extermination. What? And you didn't share. That's crazy. Big Reese, I love seeing your chat, buddy. Thank you for stopping by. He's everybody's saying one. So this is a real arcade, right? But it's got an LCD. So what am I trying to say? Listen, the point is kind of mute at this point. It really is. It's commercial versus residential. What's real? What's not real? I think the lines are pretty well blurred at this point. But I think at the end of the day, they're all arcade machines. They are. They're arcade machine. They are. They really are. It doesn't really matter. If you bought it from somebody else, if you bought it from a bar somewhere and it's got a CRT in it, or if it's a 3-quarter scale cab, I think that they represent the same thing. They do. They represent a way to play, a very purpose-built machine to play the game in a very specific way. You're talking about you? Because you are. Michael B. a sexy bastard. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, Gen X represent. I was born in 1976. So listen, we're almost done with our hour, but I got to do something real quick. Let's wrap up the hour. I forgot. This slipped my mind. I apologize. I got to do a giveaway tonight. So let's do one. We've done 2 giveaways on the other streams. I'm sorry. I'm going to shortchange you because I got caught up in my sermon on what was real and what wasn't. Let's do a giveaway right now. It's going to be 1 free item from my store. So just jump on here real quick. We're going to type this in. There you go. Let me share the screen and go over to there. Boom. Okay. Type this in the chat real quick and we're going to do a drawing for something. 1 free item from my store. If you go to my store, you can save. Let me move this over here like that. There we go. If you go to my store right now, you can say, if you don't win something right now, if you don't win something tonight, you are going to, you can save 10% if you type in this, boom, that promo code right there. If you go to my store, and that's going to be in the description. You can also go to my channel, click on my Teespring link, and you can go over there. I got t-shirts, I got coffee cups, I got some stickers, and everything is $25 or less. And you can jump in, you can save 10% if you type in 19K holiday. That's at the store. But tonight, if you want to win something tonight, type in 19K swag right now. And then we're going to check on this in just a minute. Let me go ahead and put this down here for a second. Okay, so while I'm going to leave this up so everybody has a chance to go ahead and put this in the poll. I want to get a bunch of entries. Let's go ahead and look at the poll. So we talked about at the very beginning of the show, is the 3-quarter scale cabinets real? Let me look at make sure I read my question correct. Do you consider a 3-quarter scale cabinet a real cabinet? 153 votes, not too shabby. I'm not too shabby. Pretty impressed. We're almost at the 1 hour mark. Let's go ahead and shut this thing down with 154 votes. Everybody, thank you so much for voting in the poll. What are the results? Where did we fall? How did we do? What was the winning? Yes or no? With 59%, we have no. No, they are not real. But 40% of you were saying, yes, they are real. I wonder if this conversation tonight really changed your mind. I think that you got to be a fool to think that there's not a distinction. There is definitely a distinction between the two. And I'm not going to sit here and say they are 100% the same. They're not. You have 3-quarter scale machines or an homage to the original. And to say that, you have to acknowledge the original, which was the original arcade machines. Those meant for the commercial market. They were in bars. They're everywhere. They were in arcades, and we played them. We loved them. And now we're playing something that is, a representation of that. Are they real? I'm going to tell you right now, they're real machines. They're real arcade machines. The distinction is going to be commercial or residential, but it's an arcade machine. That's Star Wars right there. That's an arcade machine to me. We can talk about the quality. We can talk about the fact that it doesn't have a coin mech. I get all that, but that's an arcade machine. When I'm talking about arcade machines, I'm calling that an arcade machine. That's where I fall. But I also acknowledge the distinction between the two. There is a difference. You get commercial, residential. That's a residential arcade machine, but it is real. And listen, it cost me some money. It costs you some money. There's nothing worse than going and getting this cabinet that you've had your eye on for a while, spending $500, $600, $700 on this cabinet, maybe even $1,000 if you're talking about a pro, and you get it home and somebody says, that's not real. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's right here. What are you talking about? This thing is, what are you talking about? And we can talk about the quality issues, but to say that it doesn't, to say that it's not valid, it's not real, it doesn't exist, you're just trying to delegitimize people. You're trying to just belittle people. And let me tell you this right now. If somebody makes that comment to you, trust me, I guarantee they drive a Mustang or a Camaro that has a V6. I just know it. That's the guy. That's the guy blowing up your comment section. He's driving a V6 Mustang. Ain't no 5.0 in there. He's driving a V6 or a 4-cylinder Camaro. That ain't no SS. Real men have an SS. Don't worry about that. Don't let that bother you. Don't let it bother you at all. Yeah, that's a real machine. That's a real machine behind me. But I acknowledge there's a difference between the two. I've got commercial over. Listen, my arcade right now, just for now, it's more to come. It has 2 commercial machines. I've got 2 commercial machines in there. I'm going to have a little more representation, but the majority of my arcade is always going to be arcade one-ups, unless something changes because of all the reasons why I bought it. It's smaller. It's a compilation. There's a bunch of games on there. It's lighter. It's got a nice crisp LCD screen in it. And to make repairs on that is simple. It's pretty cheap when you consider some of the repairs you have to make on the big guys. And let me tell you something right now, just in case anybody's curious about where I fall in this argument. If Unico comes out with a 25, 26-inch LCD monitor, and I start having problems with my full-size arcades, my commercial arcades, I'll be putting an LCD in there. I had to pay $300 for my CRT in my Raiden cab. That's a big ouch. That hurts. And I don't want to have to do that every time I have a monitor issue, a big monitor problem. I'd rather spend $200 on an LCD and then I'm done pretty much forever, So anyway, okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and end this giveaway real quick. 19K swag, your last chance, 40 entries, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last chance. Okay, we're done. Let's go ahead and draw. We're going to draw some names. So Decade, Slippers, and Nerd Lounge, you cannot win. You won last night. Who's going to win tonight? Is it? Hey, Ralphie Durham. Ralphie Durham. Let me go ahead and write your name down. Ralphie Durham. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Let's go ahead and stop sharing that screen. Thank you so much for being on the channel, being on the show, entering to win. You have won. What you got to do? Let me go ahead and find this banner. All you need to do to claim your prize is to email me at 19kfox1@gmail.com. Let me know I'm going to need to know your YouTube handle, and just go to my store, pick something out, and then email me with your address and the thing you want. If it's a t-shirt, make sure you tell me the size, the color, all that good stuff. It's a coffee cup, whatever you want to know, whatever you want to get, just email me that information so I can send that out to you just as soon as possible. Everybody, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the channel. I want you to go on over to B Kong's live stream. He should be live streaming right now, probably started just a few minutes ago. I think he's got some good stuff on deck. Thank you so much for stopping by, checking out the channel. And day 3, the 3rd day of streaming. Get ready tomorrow. We're going to have the 4th day of streaming and more topics to cover. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the channel. You have a blessed day, and I will see all of you in a Merry Christmas next time. Peace.